All right, Pot of Gold, welcome back. Sorry for the late start for all those in the waiting room, just itching to get in the chat. Pot of Gold, welcome back. I'm Brett. I'm here with Mike Grant, the intern, in a remote location, running the boards as usual. And perfectly on brand. We've probably been in the lobby for an hour now, just kind of hanging out. Got some personal stuff we had to talk through. And as the video's going or the music's starting, Grant hops in and he's like, I got to take the Blue Wire logos off everything."
Gotta do that now.
It just makes me laugh. Yeah, guys, look, hit us up on Twitter at potofgold, potofgold@gmail.com, at goldmike. I don't never will know what Grant's Twitter handle is, and that's okay.
Just to preface this episode, this is going to be a sticky situation. I am on some borrowed time with the Wi-Fi here in the hotel. So if I sound like a robot at certain points in this episode, if we have to awkwardly pause, I apologize. That's on me. I will take that. But I will say this. Everything has been fine in the pre-episode talk, and that's usually the case. And I tell you what, we started that music just now, and that is the fastest the music has ever sounded. Like the Wi-Fi immediately started glitching. It sounded like a freaking like EDM concert with the drums hitting. It was wild.
A lot to get to. Obviously, there will be a Denver Harris discussion update, but the main topic
of updates on Denver, a lot of info
and timely. Speaking of, we'd probably be kicked off the team with how late we showed up to the podcast tonight. But yeah, I mean, the main topic of the episode is going to be the LSU defensive preview. Talk a lot about the personnel. Might be a little bit of love towards Harold Perkins, Mason Smith, a couple of the guys. And Grant's got a game. The game went so well a week or two ago that we fired a new one back up. So if you don't care about LSU's defense but love the games, stick around to the end.
But it has to do with kickers.
Yeah, let's dive into defense. Obviously, if you haven't, I mean, he's on the defense, so that's.
We'll get there when we get there.
We're on that side of the aisle with Denver. But if you have not listened to our episode on the offense, go check that out. It was a fun time. We also had some fun with some other off-topic college football talk as well. So very excited as always to be in here with the crew. Talking football. We're itching closer and closer. I mean, here we are a couple weeks out. It's pretty crazy to think about. But with that being said, we do have an ad read from our sponsors. Brett, for the sake of the shaky Wi-Fi, I'm going to let you take this one if you could.
This is so bad. Hey there, buffering victims and loading screen enthusiasts. Brace yourself for the Wi-Fi revolution. Introducing the new TurboNet Wi-Fi. Say goodbye to waiting for videos to load and hello to streaming without the drama. Our Wi-Fi is so turbocharged you'll finish binge watching before you finish your popcorn. Join the buffering resistance and unlock a world of uninterrupted entertainment. TurboNet, because life's too short to wait for a spinning wheel. ChatGPT's got to pick up their ad reads, man.
Thank you, TurboNet.
This episode is sponsored by OpenAI.
Are you typing in there like convert this like a jackass would be reading it or comedy versions?
No, I just said a 20-second ad read about whatever.
Okay, yeah, you can put in there like Professor Snape's version. I mean, like let's get wild with it.
That's what I said. So, give me.
That's true. We need to start giving it like who it should talk like doing a greeny ad read.
Give me the specs and I'll make it happen.
Yeah, like portal potties. For rent during Mardi Gras with a Nick Saban twist. Like, just see what it says. Anyway, we'll get back to that later. But yeah, man, excited for this defense. Obviously, last week we talked about the offense and quick developments there. It sounds as if Chris Hilton, I don't want to touch too much on the offense, but just some additions from last week. Chris Hilton has been lighting up practice and taking advantage of his opportunities. So you could see a lot of Chris Hilton this season. But every week, more and more, they talk about Aaron Anderson being a game changer and solidifying his spot, not only at punt returner, but in the slot. And it seems as if any reporter that goes into the discussions about the 11-on-11 segment It looks as if some of the best plays outside of Neighbors and Mason Taylor is Aaron Anderson across the middle, and just he looks different. He looks like it's a skill set that we've been missing, and you're going to see him on the field. So that's pretty much it from the offensive updates.
Yeah, I'm already so far in on Anderson. I decided today while driving that, like, if this dude ends up sucking, like, I'm already gonna be devastated, so I might as well just, like, go full in. So, like, everyone knows my love for Mason Smith, but I'm just gonna take all of that and put it on Aaron Anderson and just, like, be happily surprised when Mason Smith's the best D tackle in the country. I'm just, like, pulling all of that energy away and not even thinking about it.
So let's get right into defense. Speaking of that energy, I mean, Matt House, good guy. Certainly an interesting interview. You know, whenever he's up at that podium, he's definitely a coach. He's certainly not someone that you want to be talking during media days by any means, but he knows what he's doing. Consistency is the biggest thing there. You know, I think 2 years now with the same defensive coordinator, for a lot of these guys that have been with the program for several years, they say that. They say it's really great to have a D coordinator that's really good, that's going to be here for a couple years with us. So that's awesome to see. And now it's just sharpening that sword, right? It's getting better and better at what we do well. And
Oh,
right now
that
you've
kinda
got
I was gonna say that kinda hit home with me watching Greg Penn's, media availability,
yeah,
where he was discussing how, like, last year, it was very much like, "Okay, wait, that's the play, what am I doing?" And now it's like, I know what 2 positions are doing, I know what everyone's doing, and I feel like us on the outside, like, we kinda take that for granted. It's almost like we're so ingrained in the NCAA football life. It's like, well, you just know your playbook. Like, you run dime package, you run
sure.
cover 2 man, and it's like, it's so much more complex than that that you forget. It's like, we're like, "Oh, man, this dude's not good enough to play," or like, "We're gonna have to figure something out." It's like, maybe we just need some time. And I think the continuity across the board, looking at, Grant scrolling through live on the YouTube chat or the YouTube video, all of the coaching staff, and it's like so many of these guys were guys that we had last year. And I think that's going to be such an underrated thing of, like, these guys, all the players on the team, like, know what they're getting into the second year in their systems, like, more comfortable in their playbooks and everything. And I think that's a huge plus that doesn't really get talked about enough.
Absolutely. Understanding your responsibility, but not only your responsibility, but everybody's responsibility, you know, and being able to play free. You look at why in just a matter of half of a season, Harold Perkins, you know, became one of the best players in the nation, and then returning this season as, you know, arguably a top 3 player in the country regardless of position. He's got freak athleticism and just intuition for football that he was able to play free. You get guys like Greg Penn, Savion Jones, Greg Brooks, Major Burns, guys that have been in the system
Sage
now for
Ryan,
multiple seasons, Sage Ryan. You get them to start playing freely and not thinking so much and just understand exactly what they're supposed to do ahead of time. They're going to play with that reckless abandon. They're going to play with that hair on fire. I know where I'm supposed to be at all times. And now I can let my athleticism take me to that next step and make a play, make a turnover, you know, be in the right place at the right time, and really be a shutdown defense. So as it's been discussed, obviously, you know, it's well noted that the defense was a little bit behind the offense going into this fall camp. And, you know, that's paying homage to how good our offense is, but also, you know, these guys had to take their lumps and figure it out. But now you fast forward a couple weeks later and it's very even, and the defense is winning several of the practices. That's good to see that they have turned a corner and they're locking it down, and there's consistency with the personnel. But it's a different type of challenge for the defense, where the offense, you have so much depth that, I mean, you know, you look at running back, it's like, hey, if you fumble the football, like, have fun, see you next year.
He gone.
Right? Where we're in a situation, especially at DB, you know, you screw up, or, you know, if you're J.K. Johnson and break a leg, like, we have to have somebody step up. We have to. We have no choice here. So the fact that they're able to do that right now says a lot about who this team is, that they're bought in. And we've known that about this crew. We know they've been bought in. but just the fact that that's translating into every practice that we're hearing about is really good to see. So kind of the overview there of the defense, but let's go ahead and get into the positions. And I think the defensive line up front, you look at the two interior guys, Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo, two of the best in the nation. And that's not just purple and gold goggles saying that. That is certainly evident from statistics and accolades from Wingo last season. You look at Mason Smith and his size and athleticism and how feared he is, among the entire nation. The guy was in the backfield every play before he tore his ACL last year. I mean, it was
all three of them.
It was every play, all three plays, whatever it was. I think it may have snuck in a fourth play, but he certainly was dominant. And it looked as if now we're finished with him tinkering on whether he's going to be a D end or not. I know Ed was trying to mess with him there. He's an interior guy, and that's where he needed to be. Unfortunately, it was a bad injury. He came back little scared, but Brian Kelly did say today in his press conference that it's a little bit of a sprain, nothing structural that they're too worried about. He's got some rust on him, and he's hitting pads. He's hitting the sleds on his own. He's going through individual drills. I anticipate Mason Smith will be ready to go week one. He'll be down there in the dirt with Mekhi Wingo. That is a tandem that is to be reckoned with. I mean, if you have those two, specifically Mason Smith at 100%, that just causes so much headaches, right? And game planning. Now you have to game plan for the D tackle, not just Harold Perkins, but the defensive tackle. You have to game plan around. And it's just phenomenal to be able to have that stability back there, coupled with Mekhi Wingo. Behind Wingo and Smith, you're seeing leadership and continuity with Jacobian Guillory, Tank Guillory.
Yeah.
I mean, a guy that's
I feel like he's been here for a while.
It feels like it's been a while.
Alexandria High School, he was, one of the strongest, if not the strongest guy in the state coming out of high school, just a tank. I mean, that's his nickname. But he has risen his game to a level of stability and comfort where we're okay. If Tank has to go in there, and he's there, those guys are going to be rotating. I mean, Mason Smith, love him to death. But at the end of the day, that's a big body that's going to need some rest throughout these games, right? And we're going to need to be careful with him. You're going to have Guillory in there. You're going to have a guy like Jordan Jefferson that apparently is, very experienced, a senior transfer from West Virginia, 6'4", 320-ish. Going to be interesting talking about a Jordan Jefferson coming up the middle for a sack. I mean, that'll be fun to talk about. But I think those are your four main guys. You're looking at Jordan Jefferson and Guillory as your backups immediately to Mekhi Wingo and Mason Smith. And that's a lot of experience there. You're not throwing out a true freshman, rotating in to spell some of these guys. Like, you're looking at good experience, good size too, good size kid. So really excited about that defensive tackle tandem. There it is on the screen there. And then you also throw in Jalen Lee, the transfer from Florida, who's a big bodied character, who's originally from Louisiana, a guy that I was really excited about coming out of high school, hoping he would earn an offer. Underperformed at Florida, but who doesn't? And, I think we'll see him, get some time. I mean, all these guys are going to get some time.
You see Florida unveil those black uniforms?
That's awful.
Disgusting.
What are you doing?
Did you watch the video?
No.
Dude, you got to watch the video because it's the craziest thing. Like, when they show like a very tight up close of like the Gator logo, and the stitching's fucked up. Like, there's like loose stitching, and it's like that of all the ones, like we couldn't get a clean even little Photoshop action in here. It was very weird.
Oh, of course not. But look at this picture. If you look at the size of these guys and the athleticism of just this image on the screen right here, Mason Smith, Mekhi Wingo, Tank Guillory, Jalen Lee, and Jordan Jefferson. I mean, that's a good 5 guys that you feel comfortable with. No slot.
There was a time in our lives that we, like, rolled from a Glenn Dorsey, Tyson Jackson into a Brockers, into this, and it was, like, one of the known quantities of, like, LSU when we grew up were, like, we were gonna have sick D tackles and sick running backs, like, we're gonna be good in other places here and there, we're gonna fill it in, but, like, we know what we have in, like, the defensive line, and I feel like for the first time in a while, like, I have those same feelings of, like, I know what we're getting.
Yeah, and all those teams had depth. That was the biggest part of it. It was like those names that we remember are because they had rest and they were able to produce at 100% because they had depth from guys like Marlon Favorite. And I mean, Benny Logan. I mean, like the list goes on of guys that were behind them that
Devin
were
Gotcha.
able. Devin Gotcha eventually. Yeah. I mean, but Devin Gotcha was like at the final period of when it started to like go downhill, right? And you're just like, damn it, all we have is lock. You know, like what are we doing here? And we have no more D tackles against fucking Mississippi State. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
We have guys, and everyone knows about Mason Smith. Everyone knows about Mekhi Wingo. But the fact that you have Jacoby and Guillory and Jordan Jefferson that are making waves in practice, and just hearing Jacoby and Guillory talk
Yes.
to the media, it was like, man, these are different kids now. Like this is, you can tell, and you're always attitude, just like remember the Titans, attitude reflects leadership, right? And the leaders on this
Left
team,
side,
led by Brian Kelly, like they talk like a coach. They
strong
talk
side.
like they are disciplined, like they've bought into the system, they're organized, they know. Everyone wants to keep asking them, like, hey, are y'all going to win a championship this year? Like, in other words, right? Like, they're not saying that, but how good can this team be? How good can this team be? Like, that's the same question. And they give the same answer. The sky is the limit, but we're focused on today. And we're focused on, like, right now. We're not even talking about Florida State yet. We're worried about winning today. And they have rehearsed that line and they buy that line and they believe it.
But yeah, rehearsed line, like, I get what you're saying, but, like, that's definitely the mindset inside the locker room. Like, it's 100%. I'm glad you mentioned Guillory because I wanted to bring that up, and then I got sidetracked on Florida's uniforms. Like, incredibly good media. I almost feel like I'm watching Friday Night Lights when they open up and it's like all this, press for this high school team and they're, we're going to win state and all this stuff. Like, it kind of feels like that a little bit, but guys like Jacoby and Guillory, like showing the maturity of like being honest with what he's been at LSU, maybe not living up to expectations yet, and knowing he can do it, and talking about the mindset change that's gone on, and it goes throughout that locker room. Every player that's done media availability, you can tell there's something in like the way they talk. It's a little smirk. It's a little like they just are happy. They're excited to talk about it because they know the type of team that this could be. And I think we'll probably get into it a little bit with Denver Harris, but we were talking before it started. Lane Kiffin, I guess, was on Marty and McGee today and had some sort of comment about how NIL has made it really hard to build a good culture in the locker room because it's like, people are just not really committing to the school, more committing to what the school can provide, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting here thinking like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The culture at LSU has never been better than it is today. I mean,
Yep.
we can go back to Saban. Sure. I don't know. I don't know what the locker room culture was like there, but we can go through Les Miles. We can go through national championship years. We can go through probably 2019 as a culture. Look, man, that culture was great. They knew that but they kind of took a little bit of that fuck you, Ed Orgeron mentality to it. And like, this is just being run like a professional organization. And everyone in this, and there's going to be outliers. Guys aren't maybe going to fall in line, but the vast majority of this team is completely bought into everything that's being pushed.
Well, the difference in 2019 needed to happen to give us that finally we're back. Like, we know we can do this if the pieces are in the right spot, right? Like, we finally turned that corner.
We
We
are who we
finally
thought
beat
we
Bama.
were.
We finally have a Heisman. We finally won a national championship again, right? We did all of that, but it wasn't sustainable based on what was built in that locker room and in that culture. It truly was, as much as I hate to admit it, it truly was lightning in a bottle. And it
Yes.
just happened to be for us, right? And LSU was the lucky winner of that lightning in a bottle. With Brian Kelly, there is no one dude. There is no Joe Burrow, right? There is no Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson that's going to walk in and save your program. And so this is sustainable. And this is the only way that it's going to work. And he's brought that here. So you're right. Our culture, in my opinion, has never been better. Obviously, like you said, early 2000s Nick Saban was the last time you had this culture. And I thought about this the other day. I remember, a long time ago, I played in an all-star game with the Taylors, right? It was Brandon Taylor and Jiren Taylor. And so, of course, my 2 weeks with those people, I automatically assume they're my best friends. So I ran into them on campus. The Taylors,
the family as a whole.
I ran into them on campus my freshman year, and I was talking to Brandon and Jiren about football and obviously what's going on with the team. But I asked about Kenny Bell, and he was a guy that they were very familiar with and were friends with. And he was a big time receiver, and he committed to Bama. And, Kenny Bell, it was kind of, I was like, why did he go to Bama? It was still at that point in time where it's like Bama wasn't Bama again.
Why wouldn't
he come just like, what LSU? The hell? Like, yeah, they have Nick. Right. Like, it wasn't a thing yet. And like, yeah, sure, Nick Saban's there, but like, what's the big deal? Like, it's LSU. We just won the national championship last year. And I remember Jiren was just like, well, I mean, they have a coach, and like that they have a guy that is going to build them up and, solidify their career. And it was just like, even back then, it was LSU is just LSU because it's LSU, where the culture matters, the coaches matter. And these kids, no matter what age they are, they know that and they understand that. And the fact, like, it's been since then, it's been since 2008 that we've been able to be like, oh, well, no, you're going to go to LSU because like we have a coach and we have a program. It's not just the name on the helmet. It's not just the school and tradition. It's legit. And it's now. It's not 10 years ago. It's today. So I was just thinking about that the other day. It's just that it's been since that time period that we've been this stable.
Well, and to kind of piggyback off that, 99% of 10 years of LSU athletic directors would have hired Bayou Billy, and we would have been rolling with Baby Billy from Lafayette, and it would have been the same thing where it's like, well, yeah, man, we got good athletes. If this guy can steer the ship, like,
it would have been LSU of the 90s and 80s.
I think he's a good recruiter. Like, yeah, man, he's going to be good. And it's like, nope. This like one instance in time where we actually got Scott Woodward in the building and like hired, let's just be generous here and say a top 5 coach. Like, I think I would put him higher than top 5, but a legitimate, proven top 5 CEO of a college football program. And it's like, match that with the type of talent we can pull. Look out.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no lightning in a bottle. It's lightning everywhere.
Yeah. And the good thing is, you have stability and you're going to have a great program every year. And then you're going to get lucky and hit lightning in a bottle within that culture. Right. And that's when shit's like, oh, wow, this is one of the best teams of all time. They pulled a Bryce Underwood from Michigan, and now you have another Heisman. Like, that's how that happens. It's stability. Yeah. And then you hit that lightning again. And, that'd be great if we could do it again. But even if we don't, we're going to be in the conversation every year. So
well, it's just like forever. Every time it was like the one time, LSU defense has been pretty damn steady over the last 20 years, whatever it is. But every now and then we would pop up with this good offense, and all of a sudden it was like, yeah, but we got a bunch of young guys on defense. Like, we're not going to be as good this year. We don't have any first round.
DJ Walter's going to turn the corner. We'll be fine.
It just like that shit. Like, I feel like that plagued our lives of like, well, we're just going to live by the defense. It's like, guys, we got a fucking offense this year. Like, tell everyone.
Brandon Harris, guys.
Tell everyone we're slinging it around. Reuben Randall's bringing us back. And then our defense would suck. And it was like a dagger. And it's just like, the way this program's being built, and like we haven't gotten past D tackle yet. Like we're still in the very beginnings of the defensive preview, but it's really the trenches. Like we're always going to get our skill position guys, but the way that the trenches have been built up in a year and a half and 14 months, however long he's been here, is nothing short of remarkable, miracle, miraculous, whatever you want to say.
I want to say one thing.
Go for it.
One thing to Brett's point of the trenches. We did an offensive preview last week, and we just harped on the running backs having the depth. I mean, when we go through the rest of this defensive preview, you're going to notice that the offense has way more reliable depth than the defense as we see this more experience. I mean, from every single position, the quarterbacks, you have depth. Running backs, tons of depth. Receivers, you have reliable depth. Offensive line is ridiculous depth. Tight ends, we feel pretty confident about. Which brings me to my next question about these defensive tackles. Have we heard a lot about Jordan Jefferson, or I guess we have Jalen Lee or anyone else behind him in terms of depth on the defensive
Yeah,
side?
and so that's what I was saying is like we've been so used to just having like one or two. But at camp right now, you're hearing Jacoby and Guillory's name and Jordan Jefferson's name as two guys that are going to be right behind Wingo and Smith that are making waves and making plays. Now,
After them.
Ty G. Hill, Jalen Lee.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Have we heard anything after
Langston?
those
No,
4
we
or
haven't.
5? We haven't
We
heard
haven't.
those. I'm just
but
curious.
that doesn't mean that they're not going to be good one day. But
Sure.
I think, and the point of this is, and that was the next thing I was going to bring up is, we're not going to go through the entire roster, for every defensive player on the team. But the fact that you have 4 solid guys at that defensive tackle position that on any given Saturday, if for whatever reason, if all hell broke loose and you don't have Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo, but you have Jordan Jefferson and Jacoby and Guillory, you can survive a week, right? Like you're going to be okay to kind of take them out and rehab for a week. Like that'll never happen, knock on wood. But like you have 2 other guys that are going to be good. And then you've got Jalen Lee. That's a big sized body. And Hill can come around and turn the corner. And they're going to be on special teams, going to be involved in the game planning, but you have a solid 4. And so that's kind of where I was going to wrap up on D tackle, is that it's not just the front 2. The guys behind them, the 2 immediately behind them, are really, really solid dudes that builds that depth. Now, you move to defense, and we have to specify, D end versus Jack, that stand-up position. And I know they're kind of grouped all together, right? But the main guy is Savion Jones. Savion Jones is, a blue chipper, original 5-star guy out of St. James. Somebody that we've been waiting to have a breakout. He is 6'6", 280. He is bulked up, and he is lightning fast. You remember seeing him, number 35 last season, get in the game at times, and you're like, oh God, is Savion Jones ever going to figure it out? And, he was only a sophomore last year, but still, you kind of worried, a little bit undersized for that hands in the ground defensive end. We kind of had him at Jack, but he had a couple sacks. He was making plays. Now he's bulked up to 280. He's pretty much solidified his spot as that solid, that true, inline defensive end for us. And then behind him, you've got another 5-star guy in Quincy Wiggins, 6'6", 270 out of Madison Prep, right? So Quincy, the ultimate off the bus first guy, right? Like this is Daniil Hunter 2.0 type of physicality in his image. That's your 1-2 depth when it comes to that true defensive end is going to be Savion Jones and Quincy Wiggins. Obviously, they're trying to build Deshaun Womack. He's a little undersized to be that true starter at defensive end, so they're going to move him around. 5-star guy out of Baltimore, Maryland, probably our top prospect last year, Deshaun Womack. Is he going to be a hands in the dirt D end? Is he going to be a jack linebacker? Is he going to stand up in the backfield? They're going to get him on the field somewhere. But if you're looking at just talking about Moving on from defensive tackle to the next big man at defensive end, your guy is Savion Jones. That's who you're going to see. And then Quincy Wiggins is going to get a lot of time and a lot of rotation in there. And he's only a redshirt freshman. So you're building that depth. You're building that continuity. And every time we talk about these guys, you got to think about, what does that look like next season? Well, then you've got a seasoned vet as a redshirt sophomore, Quincy Wiggins, coming back with his hand in the dirt, right? So it looks good with that 1-2 punch. At Jack, you've got Ovi Agofu. Ovi has really, caves in camp, and Braden Swinson. Ovi Agofu, the veteran senior stand-up Jack linebacker, whatever you want to call him, 6'4", 250 out of Texas. He's your transfer from Texas, where Braden Swinson, basically identical twin. He's your transfer from Oregon. A little quicker, little more burst. Ovi is a little stronger, right? But those two you're going to see with Deshaun Womack. So I think your top DNs, no matter where you want to put them, whether they're at hand in the ground D end or Jack linebacker, you're looking at Savion Jones, Quincy Wiggins, Ovi Agofu, Braden Swinson, and Deshaun Womack. Those are the guys you're going to see playing a lot. Parashand, the transfer from Arizona, has also had some really good plays in camp as well.
It's a big old dude.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so just compared to last year's starters, Ovi would be your Ojulari, right? He's in that position, and Savion is in the Ali Gay role.
Correct.
Right? He's in the gay spot. Can I just say, for a decade, I feel like we've made fun of Alabama, Jack linebacker, blah, blah, blah. I'm so excited that we have the Jack. It's so exciting to just like talk about the Jack linebacker. Who's gonna get to be the Jack linebacker?
And it's always just been like, oh, well, who's too small to put their hand in the dirt and who can fly off the edge? Now it's like a legit depth chart of that position. Like, you've got guys here strictly to be a pass rusher at the defensive end, but also can wreak havoc, crash inside on running plays and make an impact and not get their ass run over. Like, I don't anticipate Ovi Agofu getting trucked by a tight end. Like, that's not going to happen. He's gonna be like a BJ Ojulari. Braden Swinson is the same type of player, and then you're developing a incredible talent, somebody who is being hyped up beyond belief. Deshaun Womack. Is Womack gonna come in and be Harold Perkins? No, but he had that type of projection by the time he's a sophomore into his junior year. Absolutely. And so they're going to figure out a way to get him on the field. Is it at Jack? Is it at the end? They're going to play with that, but you don't have to, because you've got guys like Ovi, you've got Braden Swinson, you've got Savion Jones, a veteran now, holding down that main DN position, and he's backed up and spelled by Quincy Wiggins. Like, that's a handful of defensive ends that can wreak havoc, and you've got a game plan for that. But how do you do that when you've got Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo in the middle? Like, that's a good D-line.
Yeah, just looking at this list and even going back to D tackles, like, I'm so extremely confident that we're going to put a group of 4 out there across the line that are going to be able to hold their own against any offensive line in the country. And it's weird to say that, because a lot of names on this list we have not seen play in LSU jerseys, like especially this D end one. I mean, what are we looking at? Savion Jones? That's the only person we've seen?
Savion Jones is yes.
And then just looking at it, it's just like, well, no, yeah, like you said, a Gofu. If he for some reason this dude's not what people are saying, I think Swinson can step in there and be a completely serviceable role. I don't know, man. Excited. And then we're going to go to linebackers. I'm going to say the same thing.
Let's go to linebacker.
Yeah. Let's see some of these. Oh, God.
So linebacker.
I just wanted to see some of these big guys. I forgot to switch to them. There you go.
Yeah, so go back to those pictures real quick, just so we can kind of eyeball these guys. That's
fine for him. That's the worst picture you could have possibly
There
found.
really isn't any normal pictures of him out
I
there.
mean, his problem is number 35. I mean, like that is the worst number for him.
You look like a walk-on running back.
Yeah, but he's our guy, right? 6'6", 280. He's going to be an animal. I mean, again, I always say this. You get a kid from St. James, you get a kid from East St. John, you get a kid from any of those areas, you're going to play them. Eventually, one day, they're going to be a star for you. This could be the year where Savion Jones becomes a star. And then you got Quincy. Look at Quincy Wiggins' big ass back there. Like that dude is a monster. And then you look at the Jack linebackers with Ovi Agofu and Braden Swinson from Oregon. Solid. And then if you have to, you rotate a good pass rusher in there with Paris Shand from Arizona. So good depth, but
I know he's
really
not
good starters.
I know he's not necessarily 280 in this picture, but like it's crazy how casually someone can look 280 pounds. Like he's a big dude, but it's not like I don't know.
6'6" helps. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I don't know, man. I'm excited. We're so close to just watching these dudes fly around.
It was crazy going through making these roster lists and seeing the jump because I had last year's already set. So if there was a guy I had to change their height or weight. And it was interesting seeing some of the guys either add weight or lose weight by 20 pounds in some instances.
I don't know when.
What is Ovi's weight?
He's 250.
Yeah. I don't know when or where the Jacob Flint portion of the season preview is, but we'll just say here like pro Flint.
Let's not forget about Lane Blue as well. He did see action in the bowl game, if you recall.
Who could forget? Give me some linebackers.
It's Mike's internet. Oh, he's moving.
Are y'all? Can y'all hear me? Am I dying?
Yeah.
No, we're good
you
now.
You did for a second, but
it's all right. We can move on to linebackers here.
We can go to break real quick.
All right, linebackers. Harold Perkins. Carry on.
Carry on my wayward son.
Yeah, I mean, linebackers, obviously, you're going to start with a new numbered Harold Perkins wearing number 4. I think a guy most everyone across the country would see as a first-team All-American. So, obviously, I don't know that there's a ton to even talk about there. And then you get Omar Spates, who has been really the talk of the defensive side of the ball. I mean, every player interview, every coach's interview talks about how awesome it is to have this dude. During Greg Penn's, he said he sits next to him in every meeting. He's very professional, can do both. One of the things they talked about was like being like a good cover guy or a thumper, and I just thought about how great it is as a linebacker to be considered a thumper. It's like, oh no, this dude hits.
First team
I
all
mean,
Pac-12.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see because everyone's talked about how good Omar Spates is going to be. So, I mean, there's really your 2 linebackers. Greg Penn's a guy who it feels like is probably maybe a forgotten guy. I mean, I think he started almost every game for LSU last year.
He played a lot.
Probably a guy LSU's gonna depend on and play a lot more than us and everyone else thinks going into the season. But I think at this point, I feel comfortable with Greg Penn kind of floating in there and being able to get it done. And then you got the Weeks brothers, who you're going to see a lot on special teams, probably see rotated in some of those games. Whit Weeks, everyone's been like just gushing over this dude as like just a pure linebacker guy. Christian Braithwaite, I know he's been getting some good talk in camp. It's just like a guy I would assume we're not going to see much of.
Young.
Yeah, I mean,
he's the next. He's one of the next guys, though.
But yeah, I mean, they talked him up. They talked him up a bunch. I don't know, what am I missing on linebackers? I mean, it's really going to be the Harold Perkins Spates show with Penn kind of rotating in, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Perkins and Spates show. Greg Penn obviously played a lot, veteran guy. We didn't know if he could do it last year. I think we kind of hated on him going into last season.
For sure. No, exactly.
And I think he held his own. Was it the Arkansas? One of those games, he just came out of his shell and just went off. We're definitely gonna have. I feel like we're thin at this position in a
Very
way.
top heavy. Very, very top heavy.
But also don't feel bad if Wes and Witt have to come in and save the day. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
think we can game plan and use all 5 of those guys pretty well throughout the season, to give Perkins a break, or we're going to be blowing some teams out. That's when you're going to see Wes and Witt destroying some people at certain points in the year. And I think this guy Sloan Wright, he's a walk-on, but I'm pretty sure he played a ton. Remember we were talking about all the special team or all the walk-ons on our special teams last year? Him and Lane Blue. That's why I said his name. Don't be shocked when you see them two tearing up special teams this year. At some point, one from Neville, the other from St. Thomas More. Both of them 4.0 kids, just like Wes Weeks and Witt Weeks. They do very well in the classroom.
Yeah, I honestly think Greg Penn is going to be that guy who is like everyone's surprise of the season, because it really does feel like everyone is completely writing off Greg Penn as being a dude that's going to be hanging out on the bench. It's like, we got Omar Spates, Harold Perkins is never coming off the field, and I don't know that it's going to be that easy. And I think you can kind of take some information with who are the guys that LSU is letting do media and doing these things. And Greg Penn was a guy, I think 2 days ago, so it's like, obviously they think that this dude's enough of a contributing factor that we're going to let him talk to the media.
He had 78 tackles last year.
Yeah.
Like, he's our top returning tackler from our team, like that was on the team last year. So
that no one cares about.
Yeah, no one cares.
No one cares about.
And then I think what's going to happen, we haven't seen a lot of this in fall, because why would we? But I think Harold Perkins he's obviously going to have to move around the field a lot, third down, different situations. And that's where you're going to see possibly Spates and Greg Penn as like a third down linebacker with Perkins rushing, or vice versa.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
But they're not showing it right now.
Yeah, I think Harold Perkins is going to end up being in that rushing jack linebacker spot, maybe more than we are giving credit to right now. It's like, oh yeah, they moved him to linebacker. They want him to be this true linebacker, and I think I think we're still gonna see what Harold Perkins did last year a fair amount. Credit to me,
I'm back.
Mike. Credit to me, because I wanted so bad to just leave and have Grant in here by himself, and I thought about it and I didn't do it. So I just need credit to me.
Credit you, my friend. It's the most defeating thing to just sit here and watch this thing spin and restart and know that, like, you guys are yapping and I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's being said. And I'm just like itching to get in here.
Well, it's perfect. Well, you look great now. Everything's running smooth at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment we're good. I apologize, guys. Did you guys hit on everybody like we should have?
We haven't talked to a single person. We haven't talked to single linebacker.
We basically said
let me just give my spiel on the linebackers real quick. I'm sure it's everything that y'all said. Having a guy like Omar Spates come in, that's what's going to save our year. This is the key piece, is Omar Spates. This guy won, like we talked about, he won that strongman award from the summer. Veteran presence. If you just look at stars, right? If you're a stargazer, if you just look at talent, out of our starting guys, if they are not a former top player in the country coming out of high school, they are extremely experienced. And that's what Omar Spates brings here. This is like a fifth-year guy, I think, like coming out of Oregon State, 6'1", 235, deceptively athletic. Like, you think he's just a thumper. He's more than that. This guy can play all over the field. There's reports coming out of practice that they even slid him outside in the nickel at one point to do some coverage. Like, you're not doing that with Christian Braithwaite right now. You're not doing that with Greg Penn, but you're able to do that with Omar. And so here's a guy that comes in and immediately becomes a starter. Like day one, they realize like this guy's a cat. He's going to be playing. And so Omar Speights comes in and solidifies that linebacking core and like if Omar Speights was not great, Harold Perkins I don't think would be solidified at middle linebacker. Like he would just be at one position and he's not going to be able to do what they plan on doing with Harold Perkins. But Omar brings that versatility that we can do many things with both of those guys. So those are your top two is Omar Speights and Harold Perkins, the All-American. I mean, like if going back to the defensive ends, we talked about Savion Jones wearing 35. He would look good in 18. You know who would look good in a true 7 is Harold Perkins. I love the 4. I think the 7 and 18 need to move to patches. But if you're looking back on the best 7, like 7 needs to go to a dog that is in true Heisman contention. Harold Perkins.
Give it to Aaron Anderson and just rip my heart out right now.
But for real, like you don't just toss that around lightly. And I think this is the first guy we've seen, since the Burrow days where we legit have a dude that's nationally recognized, that's a fucking animal playmaker that is up for every award there is, including the Heisman, if that motherfucker could tote the rock. Like that's how athletic Harold Perkins is. He's going to be a nightmare. Offenses all off season. LSU's on the calendar. That means Harold Perkins is on the calendar. You look at anybody in the nation talking about LSU. It doesn't matter if they're in the woods up in Oregon. They know who Harold Perkins is, and that's huge for us. That was one of the biggest signees that Brian Kelly came in and was able to lock in when he first took the job. Let me get Harold Perkins. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I had a Harold Perkins take, and then I just completely forgot.
So after Harold Perkins, though, I do want to mention this. Greg Penn looks phenomenal. He looks like a guy. He's obviously trimmed up. He's lost 10 pounds. But, Brett, like you mentioned, his interview, his media time where he talked about the continuity with his defensive coordinator, right? And being able to play freely and know the will position and know the mic position and be able to not have to think so much. That every time we saw Greg Penn play last year, you always thought like, damn, he's turning the corner. He's getting better, but he's just a half step too late. Like there's just something that's not on par with a true All-American type of linebacker. I think what you're starting to see now, getting quicker, getting that step down quicker, and now being able to think freely in this defense and play multiple positions, that's 3 guys that you're comfortable with. Omar Speights, Greg Penn, and Harold Perkins to solidify that that linebacker position right behind a very solid interior defensive tackle group.
Yeah,
West played a lot of snaps last year too.
What I said when you were gone was like, I think Greg Penn is going to be the pleasant surprise to LSU fans. They're going to be like, oh, like I know he played a ton last year, but we kind of shit on him. We kind of felt like he was, like you said, a half step behind. I think he's going to be the pleasant surprise that comes out, and it's like, oh shit, this dude's legit.
And listen, I know we said we're not going through the whole roster on defense, but it needs to be said that the Weeks brothers, specifically the younger one, Whit Weeks, is going to be a dude. He is everything that we thought he was. I know we were very high on him watching film and being excited about him being committed. You're not going to see a special teams without 40 and 33 on the field. And like those 2 guys are going to be on everything imaginable if they're not in the game, as far as playing linebacker. But you have 5 guys right there. Speights, Perkins, Greg Penn, and the Weeks brothers. Those are your linebackers. Those are the guys that you're going to see playing every game. And specifically the development of the younger Weeks, you're going to see him turn a corner. And I think he's going to have a big freshman year in some fashion. Kickoff team, punt team, return team blocking. He's going to get rotation at the linebacker position with his brother. And that's no slight on West Weeks. That's just the athleticism of Whit Weeks. Like West Weeks isn't carrying the football. He's not having pick sixes. Witt can, right?
He had 16 touchdowns as a senior in high school on offense.
Yeah.
He's
All right.
athletic. One name missing from this list. I don't want to tread too much on the past, but gotta be nice to have Demario Tolan on this roster right about now. And what's crazy is I just was today years old when I realized he's not even on Auburn's roster anymore. He's not on their team. Where is he? He's floating in space.
Where in the world is Demario Tolan? I don't know. I think he had some family issues, if I remember correctly. Something happened with his parents.
But he played in the spring, and then in the summer he left the team. Anyway.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. But hey, I like the guys we got.
So obviously sick pictures there. I mean, look at Spades. I mean, just look at this guy. And the beard is beautiful. Beautiful beard.
He's like a Ricky Williams at running back. Just
looks like he belongs.
So let's get into let's do safeties before we go into the DBs, which is the only real questionable part of the team. So at safety, it's very well known that you've got Major Burns and Greg Brooks are your top two safeties. Major Burns has been having a lot of individual time with his length and his athleticism at, practicing blitzing off the edge, moving him inside, at closer to the line of scrimmage. You can do that with Major Burns. I never thought I'd see a day where Major Burns was coming back as one of our most solid go-to safeties on this team, but apparently that's what it looks like right now, and that's great to see. I could go without the cowboy collar at safety, but he did have a neck injury, so it is what it is.
That one is.
But Greg Brooks is what, the cowboy collar?
No, I'm just saying. Like normally, I would agree with you, but there's a valid reason for wearing it.
Oh, for sure. It doesn't look great, but he's not doing it just to have fun. Like he's doing it because he's injury prone in his neck.
I don't know if it's
Greg
the cowboy
Brooks,
collar. I don't know if it
he's
is, but it looks like he just runs like upright, like so upright. And I think it is because of the cowboy collar. But I don't know. Watching him run, I feel like it's just.
And it's because of the collar.
It looks a little different. Oh no, I think we lost Mike again.
But yeah, I mean, you move to Greg Brooks, and he's a stud. He's a guy that's extremely experienced. I hear you. We're doing good.
Okay, we're
doing good.
There
We're
was a little delay,
through.
but we're back.
Maybe a little lag time. So I think when you go back and edit this recording with AI, they're going to hear me say this a third time. But Greg Brooks is a stud. He is absolutely a dude that needs to be on the field at all times. I think Greg Brooks, if he is not your safety, he's your nickel. Greg Brooks is certainly athletic. He is a thumper at safety, even for being an undersized guy, but he's athletic and he's got that experience like we talked about. I mean, just the value of having another year on the field after being a dude at Arkansas for multiple seasons, comes in, saves our ass last year in the defensive backfield, and then comes back another year at LSU. Tremendous value there to pair up with Major Burns. The other safety that's getting a lot of play right now is Andre Sam. I will say this. Did y'all hear him? Did y'all hear his story? Like, have y'all caught up to speed with Andre Sam?
No.
Okay, so he can't talk. Like he has and I'm not joking. Like he legit has a speech impediment. Like an awful stutter where like he literally can't communicate.
Well, of course we didn't hear him talk.
That is a good one.
That's it. Like, I'm not kidding. If he turns out to be an All-American and like shines for us, he'll be like a Rinaldi special. Like that's the type of story. I can't believe it really hasn't been built up that much on the message boards and everything. It's a phenomenal story about courage and how, he's picked on as a kid. And like, it's not just like, oh, I stuttered as a kid. Like he can't talk still.
Huh.
And like, so it's very interesting, but like, that just shows you the level that he is playing at now with that disability. It's just incredible to think about how far he's come just as a person. that type of leadership and just like courage and strength to be in your defensive backfield and being able to like who knows, maybe like when the bullets are flying, like all that shit goes out the window and he can talk. I don't like, there's got to be something there when it comes to communicating coverages, but the fact that he is able to perform at this level with that issue, I'm rooting for this guy. I mean, like it's one of those stories that you want to see him break out. If you go back and watch Notre Dame versus Marshall, this kid's in the backfield. Like the first few series, he's killing people in the backfield. Like you put Buckner out there for Alabama, he's going to look at Andre Sam and say, "Oh, here's that motherfucker again." Like he's going to be in my face. And he is holding his own in the SEC at practice, right? And they like Andre Sam. So
I need football to start because every time I hear him and Stamp, I can't remember which one, like, I've heard stuff about, and it's like I need to, like, separate them, watch them on the field so I can, like, separate the two, because it's like every story I'm like, "Wait, which one was that? Like, Sam or Stamp or"
And that's the nature of the beast with, one, the transfer portal, and two, really the lack of depth that we've built, that we have had at DB, where it's kind of been a revolving door that you have to learn these kids for a few weeks before we play. I mean, the other day I was having trouble recalling who our DBs were last year just because we only had them for one season, right? And so you fast forward to this year and it's the same thing all over again, but you have some of that stability at safety. But are you going to rotate in there with Andre Sam? I mean, this is a guy from Iowa. So he is a Louisiana kid, 6 foot, 190, transfer from Marshall, has a lot of good experience. Another senior.
Played at McNeese first, I believe.
Played at McNeese for a little bit before Marshall, but by no mistake, Greg Brooks and Major Burns are your safeties. Andre Sam is a guy that can rotate in, and you're not going to miss a beat there. He's got a ton of experience.
But I think he's as important as anybody, because from everything you read, it really, you kind of touched on it, but it feels like they want to play Brooks as that third safety in this like 4-2-5, probably not necessarily the nickel corner, but another safety on the field. And
it's the three high safety look. I think that is what, instead of just having another corner on the field, we're going to have the luxury of having three safeties, and it could be Sage Ryan as well, right? Like Sage Ryan is one of those guys that can swing both ways. So you've got,
and then who gives a shit if Harold Perkins is the one rushing the quarterback? Who cares who's back there covering?
Right. And so that means you have four solid dudes rotating for three positions, three spots at that safety position at all times, with Brooks, Burns, Sam, and Sage Ryan. Like, those are your four solid safeties right now that you could slide up any of them outside of probably Burns. I wouldn't trust Burns in a nickel position, but Andre Sam, Sage Ryan, and Greg Brooks rotating down in the flats, like, you're going to be fine there.
Yeah, I think they're comfortable in the safeties.
So
Langlois still playing a little bit, right?
Jordan Allen.
Langlois still on the team. Yeah, I mean, we can get into the depth chart. I think the next guy that you could see breaking that is actually Javion Toviano. I think the big time safety signee last year, the other 5-star recruit that we pulled from Texas, 6'1", 200 pounds. He's the safety of the future. Like, that's your future All-American safety that will probably get some rotational time this season at some form or fashion. He'll be playing, but outside of those top guys we just mentioned, yeah, I would see Toviano cracking that lineup as a safety.
Yates.
Maybe Yates, maybe Kylan Jackson.
I was going to say that you're getting into that, like, whoever kind of steps up here in the next 3 weeks or even during the season is going to get an opportunity, because it's like all these guys are somewhat in the same basket at this point.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to see a ton, like, oh, let's throw in Langlois, or let's throw in, Ryan Yates to get him some time with the ones, because of the vulnerability at corner. You need that stability at safety. So you're going to have to really ride Greg Brooks and Major Burns and Andre Sam and Sage Ryan to fill a lot of those holes. I don't anticipate a lot of corner looks where you're throwing an extra guy on the field like Ashton Stamps. I mean, I think that's a dude at corner that they're going to try to save for corner, right? Like we see how these injuries happen. Like we need to keep these guys fresh and healthy. So they're not going to willy-nilly be throwing the backups in there.
And do not count out or forget about
Aristotle
Abraham the second.
And Quad Wilson. He had a pick six in the a big pick six, almost 100 yards, right?
Big
in
quad.
the Purdue game.
I've seen better looking quads in the quad.
Frank Wilson's son. But anyway, so yeah, good safety crew. Very, very solid with the safeties. Feel really good about the safeties. If we can get Sage Ryan to step up, like Sage Ryan, Greg Brooks, Major Burns with a rotation in there of Andre Sam and Toviano as needed. I know you've got Allen in there. Who put a huge erection, said, I literally had no idea about Andre Sam. I just went and watched an interview with him, and he's definitely now my new favorite player. Like, I think this is the most untalked about topic on our team right now is Andre Sam's situation. I know the fucking freaks of this world are going to just like annihilate this kid. And so like, that's why I feel like it hasn't been pumped out that much before he starts fucking making pick sixes and blowing people's heads off. Like, I think they're waiting for that to happen first and then be like, oh, by the way, like this dude's overcome a shit ton in his life to get to this point. But
yeah,
that's for another time.
That, after you mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of remember hearing that the dude had a stutter, and I just moved on. Like I never looked into it or knew the severity of it. So
I didn't either. And when I watched the interview, I was just like, oh shit. Like this is a story.
But just like look at this Major Burns picture. It looks like he's like straight up and down. Like I don't know, watching him run, just it's different to me. It's
like
funny.
A beanpole.
And he's surprisingly fast. Like there's something about Major, like straight line speed, right? And you remember
Alabama game.
He gets there.
Exactly. Alabama game's a perfect example of Major Burns' athleticism. Of he might not be a ball hawking safety that's going to high point a ball or has great ball skills, but like he's got the speed to truly be that last line of defense as a safety. And then you can allow Greg Brooks and allow Sage Ryan to go make some plays downfield. So excited about the safety.
And it ends there.
If he could just stay on the field, if he could, like last year, he played in 9 games. The year before that, he played in 5. So if he can stay on the field, I think you do see great things out of him.
The corner position is the one that all camp has been really the what are we going to do here? Because obviously, if you look at the spring, LaTerrence Welsh looked awesome. Like, and it was like, hey, LT is going to be breaking out this year. He's locked in as your corner. He has changed his number to number 5, by the way. I think everybody every year we need to do a refresher on numbers, because not only do we have duplicates, right, for both sides of the football, but we like to shuffle the deck every year with these kids. So LaTerrence Welsh moves from 27 to number 5, not running with the ones. Surprised. But with that being said, he is going to be counted on very heavily because of the vulnerability and the big mystery with Mr. All-American Denver Harris. And I think that is a good segue into the Denver Harris discussion.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, literally everyone says that there's no doubt about it. Alexander and Chestnut are your 1 and 2 corners, followed by the Ashton Samps, LaTerrence Welch grouping, and then that's it. But it seems like there's, obviously the biggest question mark I think on LSU's team going in is like, how is the safeties or how is the corners going to work? All these transfers and everything. It's like, at least internally, they're pretty set in who their guys are.
Yeah, exactly. And going in, following the spring and going into the off season and really looking at the transfers and then signing Denver Harris. Obviously, it was a transfer from A&M. For me, it was like, hey, it's Denver Harris, J.K. Johnson, a starter from Ohio State that transferred in, backed up by LaTerrence Welsh. Doesn't look like any of those guys are your starters, right?
Yep.
Deuce Chestnut and Zy Alexander are your top two guys, backed up by LaTerrence Welsh and true freshman Ashton Stamps. Now, with that being said, the glimmer of hope there is that they all competed. They've all been competing, and those two dudes have obviously earned those positions, right?
Right.
And so it wasn't just, hey, this is all we have left. It was very evident from week one. Zy Alexander and Deuce Chestnut are your best two, and the other guys are competing. But Deuce in particular, if there's any position in the defensive backfield, specifically a corner, that is 100% locked down, it's Deuce Chestnut. And, I don't want to harp too much about the guys that aren't starting, but it does need to be said. J.K. Johnson breaking his leg at first wasn't that huge. It has now become it has become bigger than it originally was because of Denver Harris really being an unknown at the moment. Denver Harris, we all want him to succeed. Everybody loves the flashy 5-star, top 30 player in the nation coming out of high school, mid-season freshman All-American at A&M, was suspended twice at A&M for off-the-field activities, twice. So, a lot of people say, this is all because of Jimbo and that type of culture there. Jimbo suspended this mid-season All-American twice.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like he just let him do whatever he wanted and then got rid of him, right? And so Brian Kelly made it a point to say, we are not just looking at this like, oh, we're picking up a guy just to give him a shot. Like, we need help at the defensive backfield. We need help at DB, and this is a really talented player. But make no mistake, he does not get an exception. There is no, hey, it's Denver Harris. He doesn't have to wear what we're wearing. He doesn't have to show up to the dining hall on time. He can pout all during practice. He can start fights in the locker room. He can start fights on the field. No, sir. Like that is where the difference in this program from Les Miles and Ed Orgeron is there is no, this could be like a Ryan Perilou situation. This could be like a Tyrann Matthews situation, but happening earlier than giving them that second chance, that third chance, that fourth chance, and then until it bites you in the ass at the last minute. He's getting out ahead of this now. Make no mistake, he wants this to work.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely respect Brian Kelly a lot. If you okay, Mike? We're losing. It's just one of those things, man.
You were there the whole time.
If you don't fall in line, if you don't buy into the culture, then there's not going to be a spot for you. I don't care if we have 3 guys that we think can play corner for us this year. It's like, we're not going to blow up the things that have been built over the last year, the locker room culture, being a SWAT team leader. If you ask Jordy, just showing up to dinner on time. It's just you follow the rules. It's the rules for Harold Perkins are the same rules for the equipment manager and so on and down the line. And it's like that could end up biting us in the ass on this one particular Denver Harris thing where it's like, we're sitting here week 8 with a couple injuries on the board saying, man, I really wish we had this dude around. But in the long run, LSU is going to be what LSU is because of things like this.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of rumors, like Denver Harris is a bad influence on Harold Perkins, and they're not going to jeopardize Harold Perkins being influenced by, somebody that he's very familiar with from the Texas area. They were both very high on A&M. Obviously Harold Perkins decided to come to LSU and Denver Harris went to A&M. Now they're rejoined and, there's a scuffle on the field. And it's like, what was that conversation really about with Brian Kelly whenever he sent, the other guys to the locker room? Was he talking to Harold Perkins like, hey, don't you dare start slipping up with bad influences, right? Because I'll get this kid off the team in a heartbeat, right? And so I think there's a bigger picture here. It's lessons that need to be learned, but at the same time, it's a lesson for the whole team that nobody, no matter how talented you are, is bigger than the team. And we'll go down to just 2 corners if we have to when it comes to discipline and expectations, because that's the difference in a game, man. If you're like we talked about last week, after the scuffle broke out, and they talked about discipline. Like we mentioned it, if you're at Bama, games on the line, and you decide to get a hot head and push somebody out of bounds, that penalty is not going your way, right?
Yeah.
You're never going to get the benefit of the doubt there. So you have to change that behavior immediately. And listen, Brian Kelly made it. He didn't make it clear, but no one's suspended right now. Like he's given him a chance to kind of check himself. And listen, taking him out of the team picture, that's a fucking statement. That's like, hey man, I'm not kidding. Like you're not part of this shit, and I'm not going to have you as an image, on the actual program. You can work your way back into this, but he's already transferred. His next stop is JUCO or an FCS school. Like you have to figure this shit out. I don't care if you do or not. I want you to, but like we're giving you an opportunity. Put your fucking head down, buckle your chin strap, and learn how to play DB for this school. And guess what? If you do that, you will be an All-American. You'll be a fucking first-round draft pick, and you'll probably win a national championship. So like, get your shit together. And I think they're trying, but they're not going to give it to him.
Either that, or he'll be in Scuba, Mississippi, too. He might end up there.
And that happens to a lot of people. Maybe not a ton of 5 stars.
And that's never a good spot for those kids, right? Like once it gets to that point, it's like you go to Scuba, Mississippi, and you don't have the resources that LSU has or that A&M has. Like you're on your own. I guarantee you right now there's 5 dudes that are assigned to Denver Harris to make sure this motherfucker's doing things right, and he's still screwing up. You go to bumfuck Mississippi and you start screwing up, you're on your own, man. That's it. You got Jordy Collada. That's it.
Bayou Billy will be calling. Yeah, I mean,
but let's talk about our guys. Let's talk about the good guys.
I hope it's a light bulb moment for him, and this dude ends up being a stud for us for a couple of years. But at this point, I'm moving on mentally as like him not being a factor.
Did you watch the Deuce Chestnut interview?
Yes, I've just eaten up every single one.
Yeah, so Deuce, a guy again with a lot of experience, undersized. Kind of a guy that 5'11", 205, doesn't jump out as somebody that you would look at and be like, oh, that's DBU. That's our traditional LSU stud corner. But here's a guy that says he grew up, wanting to play at LSU. I loved his comment about, I mean, he's from, New Jersey. I'm pretty sure is that what it says on here? Yeah. So he's originally from New Jersey, and he's like, look, everyone across the country knows LSU's DBU. And if anyone tries to talk about stuff like Ohio State, Florida, Texas being DBU, the real players just kind of laugh at that, and they know LSU's DBU. He's always wanted to be here. He's earned his opportunity. He was a stud at Syracuse. He knows how to jump routes. He didn't really like saying that term, jumping routes. It's more of identifying coverages, identifying breaks in the receivers properly, and baiting the quarterback. I mean, you look at some of his highlights. Jordan Travis threw a pick right on the line of scrimmage to him. He jumped a route last year against Florida State. Like, he knows who we're about to go against. He's got that experience, and it's good to see a 20-year-old or 21, like an older guy in that locker room hold down a position of need.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of falls in line with Omar Spates. It's like, yeah, this dude hasn't played at LSU, hasn't played in the SEC, but he's played a lot of football. He's seen a lot of routes. He understands the concepts. Yeah, I thought his interview was really good. He mentioned Zy Alexander being a quarterback in high school and how that makes a lot of sense with how he, in the same way, kind of understands what the offense is trying to do. And it's like, listening to stuff like that makes me a little less worried about the transfers and everyone coming in. It's like, it seems like we picked some smart football players. And yeah, I know that's easy to say in fall camp when you're playing against your own team, how smart everyone is and everything. But I think, I think as long as they stay clean on the injuries, like, we're going to be serviceable. And like Grant mentioned earlier, when you don't have much time because Mason Smith and Agofu and Womack and Harold Perkins and everyone else is flying at you in a second and a half, I think we'll be okay. And they'll probably make opportunities for Chestnut to jump routes and be, you know, an interception machine for us.
He's a sure tackler as well, and I think that's another big piece there is that he's not just a coverage type of corner. You know, he's a guy that's very physical. I think Zy Alexander is more of your glue guy. He's more of your lankier 6'2", 188, you know, multiple two-time All-American at Southeastern. And I'm hopeful that Zy Alexander is that guy. He's from Louisville, in Louisiana, right? And so every now and then you get what did I say it wrong? What is it?
No, it was right. Loreauville is in Louisiana. Yes,
Louisville, yeah. And
There's
so
actually a portion of Loreauville that can vote for my dad. Anyway, it's a story for another
go
day.
Bo knows.
Bo.
But there is a component to this that's like you see it across the league in the NFL all the time, where you're just like, how did that kid get away? Or how did that kid from Louisiana end up at McNeese? Or like whatever that I'm hopeful that like that's a Zy Alexander story where he finally gets to come back to LSU, where maybe it just wasn't the right timing. Maybe he was just a complete unknown, where he was a stud at his high school, but never went to a camp, never attended any of these 5-star events or Spark events, whatever they call them now, these combines. And he tore it up, became a multiple year All-American at Southeastern, was a nightmare for offenses in that conference, and then decides to take that step to LSU for one final push, or maybe two. I mean, he's only a junior, but make that final push to showcase his skills for the NFL, and he has a breakthrough season on the biggest stage in college football. So that's what people are saying. Now, Deuce Chestnut has gotten all the hype during fall camp, but Zy Alexander has been the one that has quietly just held down his position. Like Denver Harris didn't take it from him. LaTerrence Welsh, who had a hell of a spring, who's a returning player on this team, didn't take it from him. So that means something. That means that Deuce and Zy are obviously your top two for a reason. So, I think we can't go much further without mentioning, though, that probably the biggest buzz on defense for somebody that is in every conversation, no matter if it's coaches or players, they always mention Ashton Stamps. Ashton Stamps is somebody that always is talked about as a guy that you want on your team and a dude that will be making plays this season. And I forgot who they asked, but they were like, I think it might have been Greg Penn. They said, out of all the freshmen, is there anybody that you could see, being a surprise impact as a true freshman? He didn't say Deshaun Womack. He didn't say Kamarian Pimpton. He didn't say Toviano. He said Ashton Stamps, right? And the dude has blown up. I mean, he was very undersized at Rummel, and then now he's 6 foot, close to 190. And I think this is your next DB at LSU that is in that mold of, he was a little unknown in high school, right? Like very underrated, comes to LSU and blows up. Morris Claiborne is a perfect example. I don't want to get into the Tyrann Matthews of the world because that's an anomaly, but somebody like Morris Claiborne from a smaller school in Shreveport, he's your quarterback. He's playing all over the field, very undervalued, doesn't go to a lot of these camps, signs with LSU, immediately, jumps up in the rankings. And then by the end of camp, you're like, hey, this true freshman, Morris Claiborne at wide receiver, we're going to have to move him to DB because this kid's going to play. And I think Ashton Stamps is one of those. He's in that. I'm not saying he's on that level, but like that's what he has the potential to be. And that's how excited I'm getting about Stamps.
Well, if we hit the rewind and went and looked at, signing day pods, probably someone that got completely glossed over that we said, oh yeah, we took him. Maybe in a few years he'll get work. But when they asked Brian Kelly about him, the only thing he said was like, all you need to know is this guy showed up to camp 3 times to try to get a scholarship, and he worked his ass off. And like, once again, like you said, we're not gonna do a Tyrann Mathieu comp, but it did remind me of the story of Tyrann Mathieu. No one wanted to give him a scholarship, and he goes to that Tennessee camp and he's just busting people's ass like Jarvis Landry and all these top wide receivers. And it's just like, I'm here. I will, anytime anyone wants to line up across, we can run the drills. I'm here. And so it's yeah, I mean, it's exciting to see. I hope this guy comes in and it's just the Greedy Williams of like, oh, I forgot who did he? Okay, yeah, he's our best
Yeah.
corner. Cool.
And he's got balls, right? Like he's one of these dudes that, I mean, if you look at his social media, he posts he like practice videos of going against Justin Jefferson, right? Like a New Orleans kid that is working at some of these play camp 7-on-7 tournaments where Jefferson, Jefferson's all over the place, but like you ever notice those like bootlegger videos and stuff like that? It's like Ashton Stamps is like in Justin Jefferson's face, like, I want to get better. Iron sharpens iron. I want to be the best. Like, that's the type of kid he is. He's coming in. He wants to be the best defensive back at LSU, no matter how long it takes, no matter how many reps it takes to get there and who he needs to go against. That's the type of leadership and culture Brian Kelly wants on this team. He's going to get an opportunity this year.
Yep. No, you're gonna, yeah, he's gonna, and it may start out in just the grambling type of games and stuff, but I think you're gonna just see more and more of him as the season goes on, and he's gonna carve himself out a nice role. But yeah, I think that's about as far as we need to go on the corners.
I think that's the defense, my friends. I think that's it. I think if we want to touch quickly on special teams, Anderson is the punt returner. I think that is solidified. But the biggest piece out of camp on special teams is that you've got starters out there. Like and I loved what Brian Kelly said today, how he compared it to your resume for the draft. You look at rounds 4 through, you look at rounds 4 and on, and the percentage of guys that make that roster, it's very slim for the longevity of those players unless they have a second skill set within special teams. So that's a selling point to get those kids to buy in, obviously, and it's true, but it's also another way to be like, we need to shore up our special teams. Jay Bramblett, the punter, he said it perfectly. Listen, all the games we lost last year, you can circle a special teams play where we fucked up. It's very important that we get special teams correct. And there has been such an emphasis this camp. Jordy said it. Moscona said it. Shea said it. They've never seen this amount of focus on special teams during a fall camp ever before. Now, they've also never had this much media attention before and exposure, but it says something that they are taking so much time to focus on special teams with key starters from our starting 11 on either side of the football to be within those starting lineups for special teams. And then you add a dynamic, one of the best returners Kelly says he's ever had before.
That worried me. That worries. That's a little.
That's a big statement.
That's when I get to like, are we just living in the fall camp bubble where everyone's the best player in the country?
No, Aaron's good. Aaron's good. Aaron's good until he's not.
No, I did think it was funny. It kind of gave me a, well, you're not at Notre Dame anymore, Brian, when he was like, yeah, if you're a first round draft pick, like, yeah, sure, you may not need to play special teams, but we don't have 5 first round draft picks on this team. And I was like, I think I can count 5 first round draft picks on this team.
Very humble of you. You want to play a game?
You want to play a game?
Play a game and go to bed.
All right. It segue from special teams into special teams. Game's called Whose Kicker Is It Anyway?
Let me y'all get this started. I'm plugging my computer in. Hold on.
Okay.
Just in time for the rules. I hope we heard you.
Whose kicker is it anyway? I'll have to explain it twice, I guess.
Yeah, just wait. I am excited to I am really excited to see what special teams looks like, to see a lot of these top guys, these starters, or even guys like the Weeks brothers who are probably not going to play an ample amount of linebacker during the season, but being able to see those dudes get on the field. Like, dude, when we were
this is a kicker game.
Yeah.
When we were at LSU, the coolest thing to have as a player on the LSU team was the Chain Gang t-shirt, which was given only to the special teams guys. And like literally dudes would like steal shirts from each other. And it's like, if you were on the Chain Gang, you wore that was the only shirt you wore around campus was the chain gang. And so like kind of hopefully we get back to that where it's like
It's cool
you want to play on special.
That shirt was
it's
awesome.
cool to play. It was so sick. But literally every dude was rocking that shirt. It was like a badge of honor to have that. And it's like
It was
I kind of
black,
hope that,
right?
yeah. And I kind of hope that this is where we kind of go to, where these dudes are like itching to play on special teams and make the Jarvis Landry tackles and everything else. All right, now we segued in. Give us the game. We're gonna have to guess what school the kicker plays for, and we're not gonna know any of them.
Yeah. So the name of the game is Whose Kicker Is It Anyway?
Dude, no way.
It's just SEC. It's just
I can't name a single kicker. Who's our kicker?
It's just SEC. You get a photo. You get a picture to put it to. So Nick Bar Myra.
What?
You're giving us the names. Okay.
Yeah. So what school? You just guessed the school.
It looks like Garrett Nussmeier if he lived in like a meth town.
A meth town. Yeah, he looks like a crackhead.
Now, okay, wait. Let me preface this too.
Nick Bar.
This is based off of like Googling like projected depth chart starters for each SEC team, like who the kickers would be. So this may or may not be opening day kicker, but this is what a website said is the opening day kicker for each team.
University of South Carolina Gamecocks.
Okay, Mike.
I'm gonna go Tennessee.
All right. Oh wait, wrong one.
No,
it's Mississippi State.
We're not going to get any of these.
No, yeah, that's what I told him before.
You will.
We're not going to get any of these.
You will, because you're going to start narrowing down. Mississippi State's no longer an option anymore.
He's got a point there, Mike.
All right. Here's the next one. This is Harrison Mevis.
This guy feels like a Kentucky kicker to me.
Harrison Mevis.
I have such a lag. I still don't see the guy yet.
Well, he looks like a Kentucky kicker.
It still hasn't changed for you?
No, but I'll just guess.
Like the picture was going to
describe him to me. What does he look like?
How can you not see it?
He looks like a dude.
Why? Because I'm in a fucking Hilton in the middle of California.
Right, hold on.
No Wi-Fi right now.
Hold on, I'm gonna fix it. Hold on.
Oh God.
There's nothing you can do. What's his name?
His name is Harrison Mevis, Mevis. You got to see the picture though.
He looks like a dude that was.
I still have Nick Barr's crackhead face staring at me.
He looks like a dude that was super stoked to go to like Rush. Like he was like knew every fraternity's name, like what their affiliation was. That's what he looks like.
Tennessee.
All right, Brett. What would you say?
Kentucky.
All right. Wrong again.
I was so close to going Missouri, and I was like, no, that looks like Kentucky.
What is it?
Missouri.
Missouri.
Okay.
All right. Next one is Randy Bond.
I'm about to start cheating because this is going to be so
Randy
gross.
Bond. You just got to take a guess. I feel bad. Mike can't even see these. Mike, you still?
No, I got Randy Bond. He doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't look like a Randy Bond. But I would go with. I'm gonna go with Florida.
All right, Brett.
Vanderbilt.
It's a good guess.
A&M. A&M, of course he goes. Of course, Randy Bond goes to A&M. Look at him. All right, here we go. Next one. Y'all are gonna get one. I know you will. Jared Zirkle.
Auburn.
Jared Zirkle.
That's a good guess, but Grant would have responded if it was.
I'm really. I don't even know. Honestly, I don't have my list pulled up.
I'm gonna go Vanderbilt one more time.
All right. And who'd you say, Auburn, Mike?
Yeah.
Georgia. Wow, that's Georgia's starting kicker this year. All right. Wow, y'all suck at this game. Here we go. You're gonna get some on the second half. Will Rijkaard.
We got that one right. That's the Bama kid, right? Am I wrong? Is that not the Bama kicker?
I think you're right.
I think his
I've
name's
heard the name
Richard,
before.
by the way.
Is that Richard?
I mean, I've never seen Richard
Yeah,
spelled
I've
out,
never
but
seen
I
an
would.
E in Richard, but yeah, I think you're right.
I'll go with Bama as well.
Okay, both Bama, huh?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the Bama dude.
Yeah, goddamn right.
Look at that. Let's
All
end
right,
there.
that's all Brett. That's all Brett.
I mean, talk about looking like a Bama kicker.
Look at that kid. Wow. Next one.
This is just bonus coverage for anyone that's sticking around for us.
This is Charles Campbell. We got the most viewers right now. Charles Campbell.
I mean, what accounting firm does he work at? That's a Vanderbilt face. Tennessee? No, that guy doesn't play for Tennessee.
I don't know how you thought that we would know any of these.
You weren't. It was about
looking at other position.
You look at the faces and you figure it out. That's what it's about. You look at the face that I cut out for you and you figure it out. Who'd you say, Brett?
Charles Campbell feels like a name for Auburn, but I'm not going to say
I'll go Auburn again. I'll go Auburn.
Okay. I'm just going to go back to the Vandy well one more time. It's got to hit at some point.
So, Brett, you said Tennessee.
I almost took it from Mike. All
right, here we go. Next one.
We're running out of
halfway.
teams.
We're almost home. Caden Costa.
Jesus. That's Ole Miss.
You should get this kid.
Is this a 12-year-old's fucking
I did not know he looked like that, though.
That dude's Lane Kiffin's son's like best friend. He gives him weed.
Y'all know who that is?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
Bonus.
Mandeville High School.
Okay. I knew y'all would get
that.
A couple of these.
I didn't even know that. I just knew the name was the Ole Miss. I remembered Costa.
All right.
Please put the face on the other side. Oh my god.
Look at that.
Oh my god.
He looks like a movie character.
I was just about to say he looks like
Mahalik. He looks like my hair right now.
I don't know, Michael. You guess one.
He's covered up the schools with his big neck. I can't see like who we've already picked. I think Adam Mahalik.
I can go back and show you who's been used up.
Okay, got it. I'm gonna go with it's either Vandy or South Carolina.
It's so true. I'll take South Carolina since I've picked Vandy like 4 times.
Yeah, I'll go Vandy.
It's your old boy Billy's kicker.
Of course. All right.
Let's run through these.
Here we go. We're getting there. We're getting there. Mitch Jeter.
South Carolina.
Vanderbilt.
Who'd you say, Mike?
South Carolina Gamecocks.
It is South Carolina Gamecocks.
I still think Baramia feels more like a cock to me.
Mike's now in the lead.
Oh, really?
I'm glad. 2.
Cam Little.
Sign me up for Auburn. Sign me up for Auburn here.
Cam Little. Let's take a look back. So you got Florida, South Carolina.
Wait, you don't have to go through all the faces.
Wait, no, hold on. I didn't mean to do that. Hold on.
He's trying to move them.
If that's going to take forever, don't worry about it.
No, there we go. There we go. And
what's his name? Cam Little?
Yeah.
And we've already got the Mississippi schools. Brett called Auburn.
He's got the middle part.
Yeah, it's either Cam Little. I'll go Vandy.
I'm trying to think. We have Vandy, Auburn, obviously
Kentucky.
LSU, Kentucky. Yeah, there's their 4.
I'll go Vandy.
Hit the button.
All right. It's Arkansas.
Oh, I
completely forgot Arkansas was a program.
All right. Next one. Chance Poor. Poor guy. Poor guy.
Fucking people, man.
How old is this dude?
He's kind of old, I think.
This is Kentucky's kicker.
He's a fifth-year kicker. Who you got, Brett?
I don't want to pick the same one, but I think Michael's right.
It's
Vanderbilt.
the ears. It's the ears. That's Kentucky ears.
Yeah, you're right. I'm already know you're right, but I'll take Vandy and let you win.
Go for it, Grant.
Mike's running away with this.
Oh wow,
good. I take pride. I'm gonna take a badge of honor.
Alex McPherson.
I would have definitely said this was Florida if that. I guess the McPherson dude was not
Auburn.
Yeah.
Is that what y'all are both guessing?
Yes, it's Auburn. It's got to be.
Alex McPherson is at Auburn.
And then we got Vanderbilt, LSU. I'll take both those. Give those to me, and we'll call it a tie.
Well, you don't know what order this is in. So Will Ferris, is that LSU's kicker? Brett, you said earlier you don't even know who our kicker is.
I said
it before you got in here. Whenever at the beginning.
It's Vanderbilt.
This is in fact.
Good job.
He's kicker. Last but not least.
It literally looks like you went.
Dude.
It looks like you went to everyone's high school yearbook and cropped out like the most ridiculous picture of them from
these were like
98, 19 or 2018.
These were the photos of that I like. These were this year's photos.
Listen, I appreciate the effort here, but man, like that's tough. That's a rough scene. That's a rough scene. You did put some work into it, so I applaud you for that. But that was
it's not perfect.
All those guys looked the same.
So Mike ran away with this thing 6-4.
All right. So what else do we?
So the next game's called.
Whose punter is it? Whose punter is it anyway?
I can't.
Who's deep snapping?
I can't with good. I can't in good conscience take that victory. Like that was.
No, you
that's
have
a fluke.
to. I'm gonna tweet all about it.
It's on the same spreadsheet as our over/under picks, so we're keeping tallies here.
What we really tabs. Okay.
What we really need to do is week one find out how many of these Grant completely botched and is not the kicker for that team. That's the real work that needs to be put in.
Good point.
Is it Dybert our kicker?
Not our place.
Or is Dybert just kickoff?
Dybert kickoff.
Ramos kicked all. Ramos is the one that missed last year. Cost me.
No fun.
Well, it was blocked.
Thanks.
Michael Orr is suing.
Yeah, but they fired back at him. He lied.
Yeah, weird situation. Just like everyone to be happy, you know.
I guess this is a good way to end the pod.
Yeah, I don't know that there's anywhere else to go after playing whose kicker is it anyway. But yeah, I mean, everyone's still in the chat. Hit the thumbs up, send it to your buddy. Football season is inching closer. So let's have fun this season.
We're getting close to some Heisman rankings, preseason polls, who's Mike's and Brett's top 10s. That'll be coming next week.
We'll have the same top 10. He'll just have Michigan 3 spots higher.
We'll see.
All right. I think that'll do it for this episode.
Jim is in.
For now. It's not about hamburgers.
Over